Welcome and thank you for joining us for this all new exciting program, Street Smart Success. So I'm just going to set the table a little bit. My name is Kurt Roskopf. I'm talking to you from out of here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And you'll see the emblem here, World of Ability Podcast. And then you'll see down here with YouTube, Ability Network. So thanks to the success in networking, all of this has come together, and we're at a new day today, a few years of development. I'm going to describe it as a little bit of a perfect storm. And it's a synergy that we can experience when we get to doing a lot of business networking. A lot of professionals and human resources and players can come together. And I'm here today with my friend Robert Butwin, and we're going to theme tonight's program, and we're going to be doing this the second and fourth Friday of each month. We're going to come out with a whole mantra of possibilities to prosperity, and we're going to co create this new program to really build off of a lot of mutual circles we run. We see each other at a lot of networking events, and it started with the Happy Neighborhood Project. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Happy Neighborhood Project, you can go to hmpabc.com. That'll forward you to happyneighborhoodproject.com, and you can go to the events tab and click on networking and see how, with the Happy Neighborhood Project, we're doing happy business networking Monday through Saturday. With that today, we're on Fridays. We're with our Chief Happiness Officer, Edwin. And through this great work that I started to participate in 2020, it was August 2020, and that's where I met Robert. And then I came in, telling Robert and everybody I'm with the Disability Channel, television by and with people with disabilities and veterans. And I'll tell you what, folks like Robert and all of our happy family at the Happy Neighborhood Project, we got a lot of responses. And what was going on at the same time is I was co-creating the World of Ability Podcast Network with shows like the World Ability Podcast, Ability MK Now. And today, my wife Sue, we're proud to say, is the chief host of Ability MK Now, the TDC Today Community Show, and the World Ability Podcast. And we also add on the Aspie Bridge podcast with Suzanne Plumley. So here I am in this spaces with television with the Disability Channel. And then I meet a character by the name of Marc Beilin. And what Marc did is he showed me his, moving and grooving, his high energy approach, being a TV mogul, and really his aspiration and positivity, his optimism on the role of TV for all of us who are solopreneurs, small businesses, and the like. And, I invited him to the Happy Neighbor Project. And then Robert ended up in a breakout room with Marc Beilin, and Robert was able to respond the same way I did, that this Marc Beilin, he's got the tiger by the tail. We give this guy a lot of credit for what he's doing, making television really workable to all of our friends that we see time and again, and a lot of them a lot, month in and month out with networking. And so now we've got a little trio going. And this last month, closing out January, coming into February, Marc and Robert and I, we've really been able to pull it together. And by Marc kind of, recirculating this around and encouraging Robert to get back with me, we've been able to put together this program. So this is the reveal, the premiere, and this is where Robert and I, with the catalyzing energy of Marc Beilin, we're bringing you this program, Street Smart Success, possibilities to prosperity. So in journalistic fashion, now I'm going to call in Robert to join this, and he's going to take the baton now, and he's going to explain to you this naming. Like, he's got a book called Street Smart Success. So what does it have to do with us out here live streaming now? And how is he adding in possibilities to prosperity? So, Robert, coming in here, you and I are co-creating this. We've got the energy to add with Marc Beilin, but let's hone in on your role. Come on in here and being the author of the book and this mantra and this naming, this nomenclature, I could say. What's all in it? What are we trying to do for our viewers out here and folks that could join us on Zoom for our twice a month event?
Super. Well, the first thing that we're wanting to focus on is helping people get more clarity, more action-oriented ideas so that they can create whatever they want to create. It's sort of like how you and I met, how I actually met Edwin through a synchronistic somebody introduced me, a lady by the name of Doris Wood, probably 20 years ago to Edwin. And then when Edwin was evolving in the Happy Neighborhood Project, and it's like if you show up, and if you've got an open mind and realize there's possibilities all around, and if you're consistently doing the right actions, the right activities with the objective to make a difference, to bring prosperity to the world, because obviously there's a lot of confusion today. It's like anytime and every time I have a conversation with almost anybody, I said, there's one thing we can all agree upon is that we know that we don't know the truth about most things. We know the truth the way, unfortunately, mainstream media spins it. And what we want to do is help people see more clarity, more ways that they can create whatever prosperity means to them. I mean, I can think back when my journey started back in 1983, 84, and I listened to a cassette tape series. For those of you that are old enough that remember what a cassette tape is, by Wayne Dyer. Yeah, you do. And it was called How to Be a No Limit Person. And all of a sudden, I started realizing that the different limits that existed in my life, I was responsible for them being there. And see, once you take responsibility for what is, you can take it for what will be. And we're talking about, we're on the ability, and I believe everybody's got the ability, no matter, as long as they've got some kind of desire to make the changes. So to me, there's tremendous amount of possibilities out there. And what we want to do is shift the consciousness and help them realize no matter what's going on in their life, once you have clarity and determine the right action plan as it relates to what you're doing, that you can create a more prosperous life, whatever that means to you.
There we go. So let's look at, what the world has done for me and, a culmination of a whole bunch of my decisions is my story in networking is I tell people about 20 years ago, all the networking that I did. And then it slowly drifted away to the point of a few years before COVID, I had already pretty much just drifted away from doing any networking. We're talking about that in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Folks that see this from around Milwaukee, if they're solopreneurs or anything, they might remember seeing me a lot. Like we see each other a lot on Zoom. People in Milwaukee 20 years ago were seeing me a lot here, there, and everywhere. I was all over the networking scene 20 years ago with 20 different groups. And then I shifted to ministry, service groups, the school formats. I served as Wisconsin chair, the vice chair of the Wisconsin Council on Physical Disabilities, and doing all the fun things like water skiing, golf, and you know, co-creating an adaptive sports and rec expo. But then I went to create this podcasting because with all this community stuff, I said, I have an appetite to be the clearinghouse of missions of what people are doing out there in their own definition of prosperity, financial or otherwise prosperous, and it was with that a colleague told me about the Happy Neighborhood Project. And John Morley out in New Jersey, he was helping run HMP New Jersey. So I was encouraged to go see what our buddy John was doing. And this thing, like, as much as I knew John, I didn't know he was a co-host with HMP. And that's where in August I fell in love with the Happy Neighbor Project. And so I give Edwin all the credit in the world that when I looked at his social mission, social enterprise, social entrepreneurship. I'm like, this is the guy. Edwin's the guy that brought Kurt Roskopf back to networking. And wow, did it come forth like a geyser, erupting out of the ground. And then that's where one thing leads to another. I love recanting the story with Mark because it's with a group called Unicorn Universe, where I saw Mark was in attendance, and that, that's
Sorry,
that's where I
sorry.
saw his energy. So as much as he's got other places where he's built his present success, I like to just have fun with that story. But the point is I got to call up Mark and say, Mark, I'm curious about what you got going on. I'm trying to do more in TV. And I asked the question, like, Mark, are you thinking you can do anything with me to help me do more in TV? Oh my gosh, I think it was like some hours later. I think I finally got the cue and the clue. And we just went off. He helped us do a veteran telethon. And that's where the magic really set forth. We got to understand each other better and with our friend Maureen. And we just really celebrate how things went from last summer to falling into place in the fall. And we've been enjoying the television business all winter long. And so we're excited to all be on the screen together. Robert Butwin, Marc Beilin, and Kurt Roskopf. And Mark, what do you have to say now? We've been setting the stage. We've probably said about 8 minutes worth of on the Mark TV business, and now you're here to represent yourself.
Yeah,
What do you have to say?
we've already given Mark all these accolades. We told people how great he is. So we've set the stage for you, Mark.
Well, I'm trying not. I'm trying to kick back the vomit that was coming up when he said unicorns, but yeah, because I happened to see Daniel Knight the other day at the event at the Super Bowl, and he had about as much personality as a brown wet paper bag, and he decided that he was going to have Unicon in March, and yeah, he looked about as enthusiastic as yeah, it was not a pretty sight, and that pretty much have all fell apart, and he jumped on this person named Brady, which is 10x or something else, and then yes, so on the Mark TV, along with these two gentlemen, has is prospering greatly. We have a massive, massive event coming up on March 8th, which is going to be legendary. We just added some major players. Today, I had a meeting with a gentleman named Steve DeBell. Steve DeBell is a home improvement legend in Arizona. On multiple built multiple event places, and now he was also on Arizona TV. He was also back. He was also with Dave Pratt. He was also part of Ernest Cartwright was offering him a show recently in LA. He was on Arizona Sonora Living, and he was with us today. And he's got 34 shows in a can. So we're about to bring him on the Mark TV. And then also in the room was Steve Wargo, which is a legendary cameraman. He brought high definition to Arizona in 1987. Him and his wife bought him a $168,000 camera. He was filming my wrestling events back in April. He was also filming that Fafana project. Both those things are still doing well. Unfortunately, some people try to take stuff from me, but that's okay. God's will. But other than that, we have let me think. Anthony Sardelli, the CEO of Nonprofit TV, is coming to Arizona. Thomas Long, one of the greatest vets of all time, is coming to with the Stinson brothers. We had the premier podcast pickleball people coming to our event. We have Colonel Reed coming to our event. We have Myron Gunnels and Todd Lingell and Maureen Cooper's going to make a presence at the event. And then James Zulli is coming to the event, and we're bringing serious. We have singers coming in, and music people coming in, and athletes coming in. We have Fat Lever. We have Rick Barry, Drew Barry, Brent Barry. You California guys know who that is, right? At 1975 Golden State Warrior champions, and his sons, and we're also bringing in the Dan the Beast Severn, who's an MMA, USC, and NWA, and a WWE legend. We also have Don Fry, who had one of the greatest MMA fights in all time against the Giant, and also he's an actor that's now starring in about 20 different movies. So the legends keep coming. It's an amazing event. It's about opiates and fentanyl. Tommy Ranger is my partner in the show. Ernest Cartwright is a partner. Maureen Cooper is a partner. And these are going to be some serious heavy hitters coming to this event. It's a 75,000 square foot pickleball arena called Dink and Dine. I was there again today, and they were just, matter of fact, they were building this dance floor for country events coming up on Wednesday with a gentleman. So Eric, I think his name was Eric or Curtis or something like that. But yes, there's a lot going on. Of course, we have Easy Way pitch parties, and there's so much energy happening with the channel, and we just keep bringing more and more. And Maureen just got word that we're going to be on Freecast. She's adding 3 more affiliate channels, and we're just. And then we also just brought in mypxch.com is now going to do a show. Steve Jameson and Phil Franco is coming onto the channel, and we have a gentleman coming out of New Jersey and Tampa, Florida, is bringing his stuff to the channel. We have a gentleman named Stuart out of New Jersey. He's bringing the stuff to the channel. We have really great things happening at On the Mark TV, and it all started with my little friend in Wisconsin, Kurt Roskopf, the Beacon of Light, and Mr. Robert Butwin, who introduced me to so many people. And I have dethroned Robert as the master connector because I am the platinum connector.
Well, and let me jump in for a second, because part of the reason all these great things are happening is number one, when things aren't necessarily going at the level you totally want them to, you're staying open and you're staying in action. Because I know each one of us, Kurt started talking about how he made a shift, or how he made certain changes. I could go into stories of how I made changes. I know you made changes, Mark, but we stayed in action. We stayed positive. We stayed focused on making a positive impact with people. And that's really where the magic happens. When you're able to, listen, figure out how you can be of value to other people. And, because there's, people out there are searching for a way to, to do whatever. I mean, there's a lot of confusion in the marketplace. All you have to do is look at what's going on in the media, and you're seeing all these different sides. And we want to bring the truth, and we want to help those entrepreneurs that are trying to figure out what they need to do to, and that's really where everything I talk about is things I've learned on the street. I know, Mark, you've been very successful on the street. Kurt, you've been very successful on the street, and we want to make that shift accordingly to help more people create the successes that we've been able to enjoy.
You really look at Kurt and think streets? Okay.
Well, I grew up right around the corner from him. I came from Minnesota, so I
don't know. Lisbon, Wisconsin is not naturally known as a tough area, but ask him his address. No, Kurt is wonderful. Kurt has what Kurt brings to the picture is this. Kurt, no matter what is depressing, Kurt finds the silver lining better than anybody. No matter what happens, he just finds the silver lining and the happiness in everyone. I just want to throw a hand grenade in some places and go, you don't deserve to be on this earth, like Arizona drivers. But I mean, I don't know. That's why I call Kurt the Beacon of Light, because he always sees the light, and I think that's the yeah. I don't know how else to say it.
Well, but when I'm talking about the streets, I'm talking about experience from doing from being involved in life. It doesn't mean.
Sir.
It's not necessarily the street.
Yeah. Streetwise. I think he's more church-wise, but God bless him.
Well, yeah.
Well, I mean, I got him. It's all about, here's the thing. It's really funny. I am the 6,000 degrees of separation. That's why it's working. Okay, so when they talk about Kevin Bacon, the 6 degrees of separation, where it always comes back to him in a movie or something he did, right? But right now, I was sitting at a table today at Dink and Dine, right? And then all of a sudden I'm talking to this guy, Steve, right? Steve DeBell. And all of a sudden, he knows Ernest Cartwright. And then he did these shows. And then he was part of Arizona. And he worked with the mayors. And he worked with the governors. And he did a home improvement and Arizona Sonora Living. And then the guy that's doing the camera work, it just kept, every time it just keeps circling back.
You're breaking up, Mark.
Oh, well, I'm just saying is that what I'm trying to say is somehow, some way, everything is coming together, and that's why it's working. Now, I actually made money this week because everything's coming together, and the belief is there. And it took 6 months of hard work to do this, and it's the light that we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, part of the, and I want to comment on a couple of things you said. First of all, you're dating yourself talking about 6 degrees of separation. Today, it's like 1 or 2 degrees of separation.
No, I'm
And
6,000.
what?
I'm 6,000 degrees of separation because I connect everyone.
Well, no, it's 1 or 2 degrees. Knowing one person, you can probably, connect somebody, because it's
No, am
one
I going the
degree.
wrong way? See,
Yeah,
you are smarter than me. See,
no, it's not about being smarter, but again, it's one
where did you go to
degree.
college, Robert? Where did you go to college?
University of Minnesota, U of M.
Gophers. You're a gopher? Minnesota
Yeah,
gopher?
you
That's
know,
almost as bad as being a Wisconsin Badger.
well, I learned so much from a 70-year friend of our family, Harvey McKay, who wrote 8 books, 7 of them bestsellers. And the key in networking, and I loved what he had this in one of his books, dig your well before you're thirsty. Each one of us understands the long game. We want to focus on where we can make a difference, when we can make a difference. But we know that, quite often success doesn't always happen right away. We understand the long game. We understand the value of bringing, of helping other people by sharing our insight, our wisdom. And really, that's what Street Smart's about is things that we've learned from doing, and we're all doers. Anyhow, Kurt hasn't been saying anything, so I don't want
He
to
never
cut it off
does.
this
He
guy.
never does. Go
No,
ahead,
no,
Kurt.
All right. Well, Robert, part of what Mark was talking about is events that include entertainment. So to me, the three of us getting together, we have an opportunity to share something that's quite distinct as compared to the Happy Neighborhood Project or hanging out with Sajad or going to Eric Zuli's pitch party. I think that there's something to be said about, how we carry on in networking, and it's not necessarily a quote unquote networking event. Do you want to describe that, Robert? How you do networking at activities and events that are not networking events, like say
Well,
an event for entertainment? How do
well,
you play
first,
that?
you know, because I've been networking so long, and I look at networking as a bridge to creating the kind of impact that you aspire. Before I got involved in this kind of networking, it started off, I ended up running a nightclub, and it all happened over a bet, and I don't really want to go too much into that. I mean, I'm happy to do that, but I realized the power of people. I realized that, by you know stepping out and making a connection. My wife would tell you that I'm an introvert, and in the reality, I'm a situational extrovert because I know that you've got to, connect with human beings. And the more that you connect, the more that you can ask questions, the more that you can listen and focus on being a solutionist, figuring out how to guide them in a way, in a way that would be of value to them. So I don't care if it's, and I started off doing what they called the 3 foot rule. Being able to walk up to somebody and start a conversation. That was way before there was Zoom, in March of 2020. But one of the key things is all three of us seem to be able to recognize change and be able to adapt to the change and make the necessary changes that will allow us to, make an impact. You got to lead by example. So, wherever I'm networking, my whole focus is showing up, being of value, and developing the long-term relationships. Most people when they're networking, they think me, me, me. I focus on we, the collaboration, the synergy of people working together, developing the team. I love the acronym of team. Together, everybody achieves mastery. And so I focus on, and part of my strategy in networking, I wanted to find people around me that would do the things I didn't want to do because I like to talk and share my insight and wisdom of things I've learned. So I was focused on finding people that would do the things I don't want to do so I could stay in the highest income producing activities, which is relating and connecting to people.
Very good. So, in terms of pioneering a unique change of ways for people, Mark, I really want you to come in here, Mark, and you've talked to me and I've heard you share this like you have with me with other people about like I say, HMP or even being on with Eric, but Eric's out there on the TV networks as well with even the VIP pitch party. But there's something that with Easy Way and with nonprofit TV and Marine and the Disability Channel on the Mark TV, you make a great point. You can go and you can be on these events, show up with, 5, 15, 25 people, like Easy Way, getting 50 some people or more, on the screen at a time. Or you can do the TV aspect like you and Eric and Anthony and Maureen and Jay and so forth. We're getting out there in the TV and we're reaching people in a massive way, mass media. You want to describe that a little bit about visibility?
Well, visibility should equal profitability because the more people you meet, but it's not about what I learned was when I first started doing this, and I'll tell this story each and every time, you know, the people like when I met people like Robert Butwin, well, people that wasn't as educated as Robert Butwin, but people I just that were insisting on being great facilitators, okay? And what they told me in the beginning was, Mark, you're not going to be a really successful entrepreneur unless you have numbers. You have to have certain people on your Facebook. You have to be certain people on your LinkedIn. You have to post on Instagram. You have to post on X, well, Twitter at the time, and you have to do a lot of social media. And you need to stack, and get as many people and you don't count until you have X amount of followers. People, the big boys won't care about you. And I said, well, I did it. I stacked and I got my numbers up. But I realized that getting my numbers up and creating all that visibility, I wasn't meeting quality people. I was just meeting quantities of people. And now I have limited to myself to a shorter group of people. And by doing that, I'm able to focus stronger on the people that I work with now, like the Kurts and the Roberts and the Erics and the Anthonys and the Maureen's and people like that I can focus on and help more, and they can help me more by just running around like a chicken without a head. There was no value to it. And then and the great part is now when I walk into rooms, I don't want to go to half the places I go to. Like when I got invited to another $1 Million Mingle event in November, I went. And I said, well, I'm really busy. And he goes, well, please, Mark, come. I'll put your name on the flyer. And I said, okay. And I went. And then they did another event here recently, a Super Bowl party. He goes, Mark, I want you at the event. Your name's on the flyer. And then the pickleball came along and said, Mark, I want you at the event. Your name's on a flyer. So I'm always building my brand. So when they tell me they're going to put my name on a flyer, I say yes. And then I show up, and then I automatically give credibility to the event because I stopped going out all over Arizona for a long time, for like 6 months. And it's like, where were you? And I go, I don't know. You didn't matter. And I'm sad to say, I was just pissed off, and I was meeting much better people online with you guys. I just was. So now I went back out a little bit now with this pickleball event, and I went out today, and I was with this young gentleman named Ethan, and I didn't realize how much we had in common because he grew up in the Universal Peace Federation, and he started asking me all these questions. He's like, Mark, like, do you trust unicorns? Okay. Do you trust this? Do you trust that? Do you trust this? And I do trust that. I said, dude, I can't tell you what to do, but if you want to know who to invest in, I'll tell you. If you want to know who the honest people are, I'll tell you. But most of the people's names he was mentioning were like horror stories, and it was really rough. I mean, and I'm not going to drop any names right now, but I'm like, what are you doing? And he goes, well, Mark, you don't know anybody. I said, okay. And then I took him to an event, and he goes, and then all these people walked in and they were basically kissing the ring and said, and then he realized, oh, and then even today, when I was with him at the pickleball event, he's like, you got to get it, you son. You're in your 30s. I'm in my 60s. Understand people older have more experience, and we've gone through the trials and tribulations of these networkers, and some of them just aren't good people, and we're trying to steer you away from because he goes, who should I invest in? Who should I invest in? I'm like trying to tell him, and I hope he's learning.
Mark, you said something really important. When you're talking about lists or whatever, it's not the quantity, it's the quality of the relationships.
Amen. Amen. And this
So
room proves it. This room proves it.
So, Robert, can you describe that a little bit more? I reached that point in Milwaukee where I was saying that too. I said 20 years ago, what Milwaukee needs is a little bit of a C-suite guide to, what's available in Milwaukee and to help people make the connect, come to the meeting that matters to them, like Mark is saying. Mark went to just Guinness Book World Record setting type of attendance all over Phoenix and just did the massive quantity. And then it's kind of like, now is the quantity of this really, fueling my business on the Mark TV, or am I just like making myself, walk into am I just walking into buildings to walk into a building? So Robert, how do you navigate that? How do you make sure that with what you're trying to do with your precious time, that you're hanging in the right place with the right people at the right time? How do you put that together, Robert?
First of all, it starts with your belief, and I believe in synchronicity. It was like, for example, when where I met Mark, I got put into a breakout room and nobody was there, and all of a sudden Mark pops in. But if you believe in synchronicity and that if you show up at an event, I don't care where it is, and I believe if I show up with the right attitude, something good is going to happen. Does it always happen that way? No. But in the meantime, there's always a learning experience from whatever happens. So, I go through life, you know, with a balance and ease, knowing that I can bring value if the right situation is there. So, I just show up. I mean, I started off going to fairs. I started off going to events where people were spending money to improve their circumstances. But, wherever I show up with the knowingness that if the right situation is there, I'm going to figure out how to bring value to that situation because again, it's how you attract. I started my journey in 1984. In 2006, The Secret came out, which is all about the law of attraction. I was already living it because it's sort of how I met my wife and how I created my lifestyle from that point. I haven't had a job since September 7th, 1990. I know exactly when I walked away from our family business. And I knew the things that I did. So it's just going through life with confidence and knowing that you can be of value and bring solutions and listen and ask the right questions. And I don't have a list of what are those right questions, but normally if you listen and ask and figure out how you can be of understand the other person and figure out how you can be of some value and some kind of solution, and the right people will show up and the wrong ones will sort themselves out.
Yeah, and I keep trying to get away from these people that I know I don't enjoy being around, and yet I go to these events and these people tell me, I go, look, I'm not going to come to your event if XXX is there. Okay. And they go, oh, no, Mark, we don't work with them people anymore. We don't want to, blah, 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 blah. And I believe them. And then I show up at the event and there they are. And I'm like, I'm walking in not feeling comfortable, and I have to do my best. I'm too old to ignore people. I don't want to play that game anymore. I don't want to go, okay, you're over this side. I'm going to be on this side, you know? And I did. There was this young lady who worked for. She runs this financial services, and it really hurt me because what happened was she was. I walked into the room. There was like 60 people there, and they were doing their pitch, And the person running the event, AC Caswell, knew better, and he put me last. Okay, and so I was a special guest. I was last, and this young lady went up there and she started talking. And I realized who her partner was. It was somebody I didn't like, and she came off stage and, she said hi. And she goes, I work with this person. I says, well, if you work with that person, I really can't help you. I just can't, and she goes, why? And I says, I just can't. All right. I'm not going to feel comfortable. And later on during the event, she came up to me and said, Mark, I don't know the situation and I don't want to cause you any problems, but I want you to understand that this is me. This is my business. And she almost had to feel she was explaining herself to me. And I felt really crappy that I had to put her in this position because of who she was associating with. You know what I mean? I felt, and I knew that if she kept herself associating with this person, it wasn't going to be a good result because I've seen it fail so many times, and I knew it. And I'm trying to explain to her in the best possible way, what the situation was, without, hurting, without saying, bad things about certain people. And it was not easy, and people keep trying to come up to me and work with me. And I'm like, if you're still associated with that person, I can't. And it's not because I don't want to, it's just I can't. I don't feel comfortable. If I walked into this room right now and I didn't like Kurt, I wouldn't be here. I'm at the age, and we're all at the age where I'm not going to work with people I don't like. I don't have to, run around and not trying to support my kids. My job, my kids are grown. I'm having a grandbaby in March. My wife is grown. She had cancer. Her cancer is more important than anybody. I mean, and then also, I'm not at that point in my life where I have to like go, please, 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 please. And I'm not. So, we have a choice in life to not have to work with people we don't have to, but we want to, that means we can put more effort to the people we like instead of sharing all that anger inside us.
You bring out an interesting point. We've all got our standards of what we will allow or not allow of the people we associate with. But I've also learned that there's certain things that I'm not going to say because we network in a closed community. And there's a lot of people, and you don't want to, in my mind, I don't want to be the one saying negative things about certain people unless they are so far, where I'm just warning them, but those are far and few between. But again, we've got standards one way or the other. Life is the choices we make, whatever those choices are, based on who we want to associate with, who we choose to do business with. But again, I'm very cautious. There's an old saying, one finger out, three coming back. I don't like to say negative things about too many people because,
Sorry, I was
that
thinking
can
of
say,
one finger out. I was thinking of the one finger out.
well, if you're pointing out one, you got three coming back at it. There's different
Sorry.
fingers.
Sorry, but yeah, I'll give you an example. Like, I'll explain my relationship with Robert. So Robert went to Orlando, Florida. Well, first of all, Robert went to overseas and missed me, but and he calls me from over here. He's like, "I'm just about on the plane. I'm gonna," and that was fun. But Robert just called me the other day. He went to Orlando, okay, and Robert was doing his own thing. He did not have to reach out, but Robert reached out about a gentleman from New Jersey that now lives in Tampa, and his name is Aday. I didn't even know his name was. I thought his name was Rob, but his name was Aday, and Aday signed with me today. I am helping Aday do business, and he zelled me some money, and now I'm doing business with Aday. And then I was at an event and then all of a sudden I'm working with this gentleman named Stuart from New Jersey, and he just introduced me to a guy that does the glove, which is this fingerless glove that you play golf with or pickleball. And I'm getting better quality people that are showing up and showing out with me, and they're bringing me like these outstanding people. And then Maureen just introduced me to a gentleman right now. His name is Abraham. He's going over to India right now to sign contracts with, I don't know, 2 billion, 3 billion people that we're going to be doing their television, and then it's going to be this television network that's part of this, which is going to be amazing. The revenue will be incredible what comes in from this. So the right people, the right place, the right time. And now it's really cool. I'm having a good time.
But it all starts with you being the right person. Because you're the right person, you're going to attract more of the right people because
I
of how
thought
you
that.
show
I
up.
thought I thought that 3 years ago. I thought I'm going to go out, be a good guy, and get good things happening. And all it was just users. I mean, they weren't
Well,
good business people. What happened was their business wasn't making money. Here's the worst thing that can happen: you get an entrepreneur, and they start to become an entrepreneur, and they convince themselves they're an entrepreneur. So they think they can do it all, and then they start trying to make their business. And what happened was there's failures. And instead of accepting that failure and fixing that failure, they think someone else should fix the failure and take somebody else's money and fix my problem. And I became everybody's problem fixer. And what the problem was, when I did fix the problem and give them money, they still didn't know what to do with it because they were never destined to be an entrepreneur.
yeah,
It's that I don't know what to say, but it's this is not taking on as an entrepreneur is not easy. It's a hard. I do it 20 hours a day, 7 days a week.
yeah. And I agree with you. It's not easy, but it's worth it when you break through. And the point is, Mark, you like sports, and we all need to take responsibility. And if you hand somebody the ball and you continually see them sabotage themselves, you're not going to fix stupid. Stupid's just tough to fix. So, and I know you're a
Yeah,
smart
you mean
guy.
like that one guy? You mean like that one guy you were talking to,
Yeah,
driving you
no, we don't
crazy,
want.
and then
I
you
don't
passed him
want to
on
name
and made him.
names. Yeah, I don't want to name names, but yes, we're thinking about the same
You
thing. I
mean that
mean,
one guy that won't stop calling me now? Thanks, Robert. Yeah, we all have people like that. Like, it's funny. Like, but yes, I mean, Robert had a friend who called him a lot, and then he decided, I don't like. Oh, by the way, here's Mark, and we're not going to mention names because yeah, he's notorious, but yeah, he's well known, and but they keep bringing these massive dreams. They go, oh, I know this guy, I know this guy, and I know this guy, and that's the same thing I used to do. I was like, I know this guy, I know this guy, I know this guy, but I didn't. But I kept introducing people, and then what they would do is they would just steal it, and then go, oh yeah, I've known him. Everybody used to tell me, I know this guy 20 years. How could you know him 20 years when he just got to Arizona an hour ago? I just met him at like basically the bus stop. He just got off the bus, and now you're saying you know him 20 years. And they're just, that's their lie. They don't have, they just keep telling it over and over and over again, hoping once somebody would believe it. God
There you
bless.
go.
Right. But then you got Kurt, Mr. Positive, Mr. Like, it's okay. It's all right, Mark. They're not that bad. Da 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 da. You know, yeah. And that's why, he has these meetings and I see these events and I open up the screen and go, nope, nope. Because it's not that I just find out there's going to be a person in the room. They're going to talk a lot and nothing's going to get accomplished. That's the problem. They have the right meaning. They have the right heart. They just don't have the right finishing. They don't know how
yeah.
to finish. They don't know how to close it.
Well, we're
It's,
all entrepreneurs, and we all need to judge where we're going to spend our time and who we're going to spend our time with. And
amen.
obviously, if you can't spend too much time with the wrong person. And obviously, there are certain people that are not going to change, and that's okay. But we're focused with the people that are in the process of making things happen, and the doers, the people that want to make a difference. And that's what this is about. It's the ability. This is a network of people that really are focused on making this world a better place and making a positive impact with people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I mean. I just met a gentleman that's creating optics that is going to change the DoD the way radars work, and he has this green tech greenhouse generators that's going to just change the way we eat and take care of things. And I just keep reaching out to these people, and my friends list is getting better and better and better. You know what I mean? And that's what happens. Your friends list becomes better and better and better. And then what happens? And then I go into my social media and I start. At the beginning of the year, I started I didn't want to do this, but I had to get rid of, how do you have all these holistic people, that come to us and they say, Eric, sorry, Kurt loves holistic people. And these holistic people come into the rooms and they talk about mind clutter, and they're exactly right. Like, there's too much clutter. I got to get rid of. Like Eminem says, I got to clean out my closet. I had to get rid of the spider webs. I had to get rid of the stuff in my closet. I had to throw out old clothes that from the fifth grade. It just doesn't work anymore, and I had to get rid of that clutter. And when I got rid of the clutter, things became more clear. So when these holistic people say unclutter your mind, they can't fix me, but I believe them.
Well, sometimes you've got to release, because if you're carrying around too much baggage, and again, you've got all different kinds of people in the world. But, it's like if you're going to go on a trip and you're taking 14 suitcases with you, it's going to slow you down. If you're carrying around too much baggage, too much
He's
mental
froze.
baggage, um, and that's why those people are needed. But in the meantime, you've got all different kinds of people in the world, and there's a lot of people that can use that stuff because there's it's like I grew up. my mom was very narcissistic. Well, I learned from that. I remember when I started my journey, I was listening to Michael Gerber from the E-Myth, and he starts off the series saying 4 to 5 businesses are going to fail in the first 5 years. Of the 20% that fail the first 5 years, of the yeah, of the eight, yeah, of the 20% that make it 5 years, 4 to 5 are you going to fail in the next 5 years. And I'm listening to my self-talk, and I said, that's not me. Failure was not an option. So, but everybody talks to themselves. Here's the scary part about that whole thing. Most people don't even recognize that they're talking to themselves. My wife and I will go out for a walk, and she'll look at me and she says, "What do you say? What are you talking to yourself? What do you say to yourself?" But most of the talk is negative because there's so much negative things on your normal TV channels. And that's where your channel is so unique and different and that's where what Kurt is doing is so unique and different. It's bringing the positiveness out there so people can realize there are other ways to make a positive impact. But I know we're getting close to the top of the hour. Um, and I know that we could be talking for hours, but we're going to be back in a couple weeks. This what is this? The second Friday of the month. We're going to be back. The fourth Friday of the month. We're going to be back every other week. We're going to start bringing other guests on, and our whole focus and relationship to what we're looking at and what we will do is make a positive impact so that other people can realize that there's different ways that they can accomplish whatever they're looking to accomplish.
Well, Kurt, it's you're the host, you're the facilitator, you're the podcaster. So, we got about 7 minutes left. So why don't you close us out and with your beacon of light and send us off with positivity and the reason we're doing this.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Robert. Yeah, to talk about the reason we're doing this, we're three gentlemen here that, really are, in the same frame of mind about, how we focus on bringing value to where we show up, like doing this event, doing this podcast, and being available on Zoom for our friends from other places to join us here on a Friday evening, ongoing a couple times a month to have an objective to see if we can continue to help each other have a deeper and broader growth pattern and to grow together. All ships rise with the tide, and to take groups like, the Easy Way VIP Pitch Party to join Sajad next week at the, mini Shark Tank and the polarizing networking. People are out there doing, very magnificent stuff and really out there to serve us. And that's the ebb and flow of it. That when we show up as an individual and we tune in and we put on our listening hat to listen for where we might be able to add a value. 20 years ago, a gentleman taught me to, you know, build a relationship to the point where you can come in confidence to say, I think I have something that could help you with that. Kind of like Mark can say with On the Mark TV, like if somebody just really wants to get their thing out there with more visibility, when Mark feels like the guy's telling him, hey, I need more visibility, Mark can say, well, I think I have something that could help you with that. And I was taught to listen for if they're leaning in for it. If they're not leaning in for it, well, then you're just kind of coaxing them along, you're convincing them. And I think the three of us here agree that, that's really a very short term, here today, gone tomorrow prospect to convince somebody to do something because they're doing it off of your energy. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to create that connection to learn how we can help someone else. And that's what these events are going to keep unpacking. What that really looks like to set that reticular activation, be able to recognize that, to say, this is how we step in and to bring our value proposition forward. But there's a whole process before that. And I've been a part of groups that said that's the danger of networking. Is some of the people we're describing, we find people who are going around, um, in MLM business, they'll call that churning and burning, right? That's something that people say in the MLM trainings. Are you out there churning and burning, just trying to say, I got the greatest things since sliced bread and all this stuff and puking upon them and then people don't want that. They don't want to be sold to. People want to make a buying decision. So how are we helping them being highly informed and to add value in everything we do? And so that's what I get from Robert. Robert's always here. How can I help? How can I add value? How can I be of service? And Mark just has a magnificent way to go about television. And, I learned a lot with Mark, in the last 9 months of time doing the telethon together. So I'm looking
You have
forward to the next
changed.
show.
You have changed. But hold on a second. We only got a couple seconds. But now here's one thing: we're all married, okay, all three of us,
Uh-huh.
and we better not do it injustice. And let's all wish our lovely spouses happy Valentine's Day tomorrow, because without their support, none of us are here. My wife supports me greatly. I know Robert's wife does. I especially know Kurt's wife does, because she's part of the whole thing. So let's take the time and say, Evie, my beautiful wife of 20 years, happy Valentine's Day. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being part of my life. And thank you for allowing me to do all I do. Kurt? Oh, let's go, Robert.
Sure. When I started my journey back in
Robert, it's
1980,
about your wife. Stop talking. Go.
what? No, I
Say
know.
happy
I would
Valentine's Day.
say I was gonna get to you just cut me
Okay.
off real quickly. But when I started my journey, what the key to my success has been her. I would not have been able to accomplish anything as it relates to the things I've accomplished if she wasn't in my life. No question about it. I'm very thankful every day, every night before she goes to bed. I tell her I love her. Every morning when she wakes up, I ask her, she loves to have lemon water. But
Aw.
yeah, I make sure that I squeeze the lemon water.
Aw.
And I do my honeydews every day. So it's
Aw.
Valentine's Day, and I know how important each of us, how we respect and appreciate the ladies that we have married.
Amen. Amen. Kurt, you've been married, what, 500 years?
Yeah, we're
Robert,
coming up
Robert,
on
how long
in
you been married? Wait, I think
41,
Robert,
40,
how long you been married?
41, 41 years.
I'm 20. Kurt?
we're at 29, but 2.5 months away from 30. So
Wow. So go ahead.
approximately 30 years, we're getting there.
Tell us how you feel about Sue.
Well, across the decades, I've always been saying, here's my better half, Sue Roskopf. And some months ago, somebody told me, well, Kurt, she's really your better three quarters. And I shared that again with somebody this past week. And the lady is telling me, well, there's this thing, Sue, that we go by, we're the better 100%, right? That basically we live through, who they are. So there you go, Sue. That's where you are. You're my better 100%. And happy Valentine's.
Aw.
Oh,
Aw. Yeah, I'm sure Mrs. Butwin doesn't have Robert's haircut, but and I know my wife doesn't have my haircut, but Kurt, no, we love Sue Roscoe. She's the best, and I know how much she loves Kurt, because every time I say a little something to bust his little chops, she's quick to become Super Sue and say, "Shut up." So
there
shut
you
up, Mark.
go.
That's the
Don't
key
pick on
about
my
each of our
husband.
the key about each of our wives. They've always got our backs.
And my friends and everywhere else plus yeah my a lot of times my wife has financially supported me for years and given me the opportunity to do this, and I try to support her in what she does, and that's exactly what it is. So thank God we're all very married men. We're all like, yes dear, yes dear, yes dear, yes dear, yes dear, yes dear. So we all know better, and we've all obviously 20, 29, and 41 is a long time to be married in the way people think today is not commitment. They think, what's in it for me? And we've dedicated our lives to our beautiful spouses.
There you
So
go. So
happy
tune in
Valentine's
again
Day
and
to all the loved ones out there.
there you go. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Robert. So everybody out there, please tune in again in 2 weeks. We'll see how sappy these guys get on February 27th. We'll keep the month of love going. But bye for
We
now.
need a
Thanks for
tagline. What's our
tuning in to Street
tagline?
Smart Success. Possibilities to prosperity. All right. Bye for now.